For the group that's working on tangrams right now, we are going to explore a little bit what tangrams are and what we're going to do with this activity. The first thing you should notice is that there are 7 individual bags that have 7 pieces in them. Now, along with those 7 pieces, there are also handouts showing how these pieces can make various different shapes and images. Some of these images might be of people, of things, of animals, of various types of boats or images or environmental stuff. So the first thing to do is each take a bag and practice making some of the images on the handouts. Really, this tangrams are used in a variety of situations. Geometry teachers really like them because they can be used to really explore spatial zones. But we're looking at it in terms of a composition point of view, and some of the things that we learned through the Molly Bang PowerPoint that was online last week, and seeing how it all comes together via these different shapes, and how moving one shape can completely change an image. After you've kind of worked with the various shapes and gotten used to trying to make it all work together, which is actually much harder than it seems, what I'd like you guys to do is to work together to come up with a scene where everyone can contribute a selected image. So everyone in the group will select an image, and it doesn't have to be something that was in your bag. It can be an image that one of your partners has, but you want to select an image that together is going to make a scene that tells some sort of story. So one person, if you wanted to do a scene from Little Red Riding Hood, one person would pick a person to do, and use one of the handouts to help them do a person running. Another person may pick to do the wolf and pick that from one of the animal handouts. Other people can do trees, but everybody has to somehow contribute. After this is done, write a short paragraph just describing the story of the scene. It doesn't have to be long at all. It just has to be sufficient enough so it tells us what's going on. After you finish this, post this paragraph and a picture of your Tangram scene on Moodle in the Tangram forum, which will be under the activities that we're doing today. For the posting title, put your group number plus a title of the scene you created. So together think of a title, like if you did a scene from Little Red Riding Hood. Little Red Riding Hood runs for her life, or running for her life in Little Red Riding Hood, something like that. If one of you has a cell phone, that's a great way to just take a picture and then email it to yourself and then put it online. If you don't have a way of taking a picture, please alert me. I'll take a picture and then I'll send it to one of you. The next slide I'm going to go to is going to actually play the story of Tangrams and actually show you Tangrams in an animated form telling the story of the origins of Tangrams. So it might give you some ideas about what you can do with your own shapes and how you can manipulate them.
A Sage's Journey, the story of Tangrams. A long, long time ago, in a faraway land, there lived a sage. A sage is a very wise man, and this sage was amongst the wisest. He had the cunning of a fox, the wisdom of an owl, and the memory of an elephant. Because of this, the king asked the sage to perform a most difficult and challenging task. He asked the sage to safely transport a pane of glass to the royal palace. The sage knew that this would be a difficult task. The palace was on the other side of the kingdom, across the hottest of deserts, over the widest of rivers, and on the other side of the tallest of mountains. You may ask, why is a pane of glass so important? Long ago, glass was not common. This pane of glass was special. The glass was perfectly square. It was to be used as a window in the royal palace, the first window in the entire kingdom. The sage knew the importance of both the glass and his journey. He also knew that many perils lie ahead. In order to get to the palace, he knew that he would have to cross the hottest and driest of deserts, sail the widest and turbulent of rivers, and climb the tallest and rockiest of mountains. The sage gladly accepted the challenge. To protect the glass from scratches, the sage wrapped it in the finest and softest silk. To protect it from bumps, the sage wrapped the silk package in the toughest canvas he could find. To protect it from all other rigors of the journey, the sage placed the canvas package in the strongest leather backpack. With his cargo securely wrapped, the sage strapped the pack on his back. He turned and looked at his humble house. He knew that it may be the last time he may ever see it. He turned away and took the first step on his difficult journey. Within a day, the sage approached the largest desert he had ever seen. He looked to his left, and all he saw was desert. He looked to his right, and all he saw was desert. He looked straight ahead, and all he saw was desert. Having the wisdom of a sage, he knew that he could not cross the desert on foot, so he found a camel and continued his journey upon its back. After days of riding, the sage finally crossed the desert. Before long, he came to the widest river he had ever seen. He looked to his left, and all he saw was river. He looked to his right, and all he saw was river. He looked straight ahead, and all he saw was river. Having the wisdom of a sage, he knew that he couldn't cross the river on the back of a camel, so he built a boat, jumped aboard, and set sail across the river. After days of sailing, the sage finally crossed the river. Before long, he came to the largest mountain he had ever seen. He looked to his left, and all he saw was mountain. He looked to his right, and all he saw was mountain. He looked straight ahead, and all he saw was mountain. The sage knew that he could not go around or under the mountain. He knew there was only one other way. He began to climb. For days and days, the sage climbed and climbed. After many days of climbing, the sage stood exhausted on top of the mountain. In the valley below, on the other side of the mountain, the sage saw his final destination, the royal palace. Finally, thought the sage, my journey is nearly complete. As he thought, the sage took his mind off the slope before him. He accidentally tripped on a rock. Instantly, the sage was falling down the mountain, head over heels and heels over head. After falling for what seemed forever, the sage finally stopped. Horrified, he took off his pack to inspect the precious commodity. He first removed the canvas package. He carefully unfolded the canvas. He next removed the silk package. He carefully unwrapped the silk. To his amazement, the glass had not shattered into a million tiny pieces. Instead, it broke into only 7 pieces, 2 large triangles, a medium triangle, 2 small triangles, a parallelogram, and a square. The sage couldn't believe his eyes. He tried to arrange the pieces of glass to form the original square. First, he made a rectangle. He then made a triangle, and then a parallelogram, and finally a trapezoid. After many attempts, the sage finally arranged the 7 pieces in the shape of a square. He carefully wrapped the pieces of glass in the silk to protect them from scratches. He wrapped the silk package in the canvas. He placed the canvas package in his leather backpack. The sage continued on his journey. Later that day, the sage arrived at the palace and presented the package to the king. The king eagerly opened the package. He was shocked to see the broken glass. He demanded an explanation. The sage quickly took the pieces. He arranged them over and over. He showed the king how he had ridden a camel, sailed a boat, and climbed over a mountain on his trek. He told the king how he had accidentally fallen down the mountain and broke the pane of glass. The emperor was quite impressed with the sage's story, but he still wanted a window. Alas, explained the sage, all is not lost. With these 7 pieces and an imagination, you can make any figure you desire, be it a camel, a boat, or even a window. By this time, the king was far too busy arranging the pieces to listen to the sage. Within a few days, the king decreed this new game to be the royal game of the kingdom, and Tangrams was born.